on his end. So it's actually not too bad as long as I'm editing it for him so he knows because he doesn't know where to cut it. You know, I know where to cut it. I don't make him watch the whole thing. And you're starting it? Who's starting it? I'm starting it?
You're starting.
Oh, I am? Okay.
I introduced last time.
Oh yeah, you did. Okay. All right. So our goal is to end around 4:15. Right. Well, what time is that for you? 6, 8, 7:15. Okay.
7:15.
Okay. Okay.
Hold on. You're lagging and I can't hear you. Okay. All right. I think you're good.
Okay. So I will go and then I'll wait for you and you wait for me. And if no one says anything,
It's gonna be so slow.
We'll just sit here. Sorry guys. We're having some lagging issues. But
just when we thought we got the audio down, it's the Wi-Fi.
I know. Oh, Wi-Fi. But you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Hi everyone. Hello. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I hope you're driving safe if you're driving. I'm Giselle.
And I'm Lynn.
And welcome to Sonographers in the Cities. Today we're going to talk about where do sonographers work. So you guys want to be a sonographer or you're already a student and you kind of want to know where can you go with those credentials that you get and how can you get a job, where can you work? And me and Lynn are in two different opposite ends of the United States. And so we're kind of just going to talk about careers and where you can work.
Yeah, I'm not sure about you, Giselle, or any of you who are listening, but when I wanted to be a sonographer, I had a very clear mind of where I wanted to work. I wanted to be an outpatient. I wanted a stable hours, daytime. I don't want to do any overnights or night shifts because I did a lot of that in my previous job. And I just want a stable hours with outpatient private clinic. So that was my kind of like thought going into and what I wanted. And now that I'm clinical, it kind of like meandering towards inpatient and in hospital right now. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to know that like you actually did your research and thought about where you wanted to work. And I know a lot of people think when they go into ultrasound, like that they can only do babies and scan babies. And then little do they find out when they go into their program, they've got to learn all this other stuff like abdomen, pelvis, testicles, things that you never thought you'd have to scan before. So real quick, I just want to say sorry if you can hear my dog barking because she keeps barking. But yeah, it's kind of like I knew that I wanted to become a sonographer, but I didn't know where I wanted to work. When I was a nurse, actually, I wanted to do pediatrics. So thinking about pediatrics, I was like, do you scan kids? And little did I know that you did scan them. And, there's children's hospitals out there that do ultrasound, and we scan kids all the time. So there's a ton of different places that you can work as a sonographer.
I did some research when I was wanted to see where I can work. So I noticed that there are inpatient hospital settings, which is where you work, Giselle. And there's long-term care facilities, there's private practice offices, the one that I initially wanted to work at, OBGYN, MFM offices, and there are also travel sonographers, which I've never heard of until I became more aware of in the program. Giselle, can you tell us more about those settings since you're 5-year sonographer?
Yeah, so I can definitely give you some insight. Actually, after I graduated, I've worked in so many different places within these last 5 years. It's actually quite interesting the way it works out here in Las Vegas. I don't know how it works over in New York or any other cities out there. So if you guys want to share with us how it is in your cities, you can let us know. But for me personally, I worked for a small like company. and it was ran by contract. From the last episode, if you guys heard me say, like, I worked as a student already, like graduated in February 2017, worked as a student, and then graduated. I worked for a small company, and he sent me out to contracted doctors' offices and a long term care facility. So I actually would scan in a cardiovascular office and then also at a long term care facility where they had this little laptop machine. And I would work in like a 16-bed hospital, basically. And after that, I got more experience with working for another company that contracted in multiple hospitals. So that one has a ton of hospitals in the valley. You know, there's hospital networks out there in cities, right? Huge corporations. And some hospitals hire through the hospital themselves, or they will hire you through a company which contracts these hospitals. So it's kind of interesting because you have to figure out where you can work, how you can get the job, and especially for like people who want to shadow, you have to figure out who you have to talk to. So that's the hardest part about this. But then also, I work right now for a hospital that is employing me through themselves. So I'm not contracted by anyone else. I work for the hospital itself. But yeah, I've never worked in an OBGYN office. I've worked in some outpatient settings, and I'll tell you the differences between hospital and outpatient is huge.
That's very interesting to know. My clinical site at Mount Sinai, I work in both settings, so inpatient and outpatient. So I'm able to experience both kind of settings in the hospital. I don't know about private practice outpatient, but definitely the vascular lab that I'm in, they have a really set time. Inpatient's a little bit more hectic. There are stats and like add-ons. And while outpatient's a little bit more stable because they have hours and appointments, so I get to see a little bit of that, and that's why I like inpatient more because I like the intensity of it, and it's like a go go. It's very fast paced. Even though outpatient is fast paced too, but it's a little bit more relaxing when there are late patients or there are no shows.
Yeah, it's such a big difference because I came from a clinical site that's the hospital, right? And then you go work for an outpatient setting and you're like, whoa, it's almost close to like two different types of busyness. You know, people coming in through the outpatient, they're on a schedule. You've got multiple people coming in, you can get behind versus a hospital where people, you get to them as soon as you can, when you can. You've got the ER so busy. You've got nurses calling you from upstairs, and you've got, like you said, the inpatients that come too that also are technically outpatients. Um, when they come in, they get a scan and sometimes they can go home. So it's a lot. You have to kind of look at what kind of environment you want to be in. Do you want to be in a private practice where you're the only sonographer and you go to that doctor? So when I was at the cardiovascular office, it was just me and just the doctor, me and the heart doctor. I'd scan and he'd come and talk to me. And some people like that. Or some people like the hospital setting where you don't really talk to the radiologist unless they call you for something. So kind of do your research and see what it is you kind of want to go into.
That's very true. And I really like that the programs give you clinical sites that are diverse so that you get to experience all of them. Like my school just got long-term care facilities. My track doesn't have that site specifically, but the general track does. So I've seen other students in the other track have long-term care facilities there. So I think that's like really interesting for students to be able to uh, work there and see if that's for them. If it's not for them, then that's one way to clarify what they want to do.
Exactly. You get to see it before you even try, to work there because, of course, everyone's going to tell you get the experience wherever you can. But sometimes some people, they just can't handle the long-term care facility or seeing those patients. Sometimes people can't handle seeing, really hard ventilated patients. So then maybe they can only do an outpatient setting. And you kind of have to see what fits you best. Even travel sonography, like some people aren't out for that. You are on the road away from your family, your kids. I mean, it's good money, but you're gone for a good period of time. So lots of things to think about. Sonographers don't just do babies and don't just scan in doctors' offices. We're also in hospital settings, vascular labs, and kind of check out where you can work and where you want to be.
That's true. I do look at like current job openings around my area to see what positions are out there, and like hopefully when I'm done, like just to like mentally prepare myself, like where I want to go and where I might want to apply. And I see a lot of travel sonographers, and it's like one most of the contracts I've seen are they're gone 3 weeks and 1 week off a month. So that's like really, really cool for someone who wants to be on the go and who's like very independent. So if that's for you, definitely consider being a travel sonographer.
Yeah, I know there's a blog out there. One of the travel sonographers, she writes about her experiences. So, if you guys are interested in that, just message one of us and we can get you that link to see more. But suggestion for traveling, if you want to travel, I'd say get some experience under your belt first, at least 3 to 4 years before you want to go out there, because you've got to know your stuff before you start traveling to other places.
I totally agree. Especially, I mean, I think that goes with everything that you do.
Mhm.
Like get your experience, and then that will take you very far wherever you want to go.
Right, because once you get that, like, year of experience somewhere, you got your feet wet, you're able to do a bunch of scans. Now you can prove to the employers, like, hey, I know what I'm doing. I've got experience under my belt. Get your foot in there somewhere and then get that dream job that you want in that outpatient facility or in that hospital. There's really well-known hospitals out there, um, that I know would be lucky to have anyone who's willing to work and be a hard worker and, do the job. And that's what everyone's looking for. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen that so many places are hiring and there are so many sonographers who are burnt out. And that just shows that there's a need in this field. So you guys that are going into it, keep up the good work and try to see who's hiring in your area.
Yes, and workplace is not the only consideration for where you want to work. You definitely want to consider the hours that you want to be working. Like I said before, I wanted daytime hours. I didn't want on calls, night shifts. So they're definitely part time. I think from what I've heard, most employers do employ per diem first, and then they move up to part time, full time. How is that for you, Giselle?
Yeah, so if you guys have been around with my journey recently, you guys would know that I finally went full time this year. I've been per diem ever since I graduated, and everything has its pros and cons. But sonography is a little bit different when it comes to the career because most people dream about getting a full time job, 5 days a week, day shifts, weekends off, holidays off. That's not the case in medical. And especially in ultrasound, because nurses can go into full time like right away. You can get a full time job like that, nursing shortage, right? But for ultrasound, you kind of have to give and take a little bit. A lot of places don't hire full time right away because you've got the sonographers who are already there. They're established, they've been there for years, they've got their seniority. So these places are hiring per diem, part time, people who are willing to fill in the gaps, people who can work shifts whenever they're needed. So you definitely have to consider being per diem first. I was per diem for a long time. I'll tell you, you can work 2 jobs as a per diem sonographer, 3 jobs even. You kind of just let them know, hey, this is my schedule, this is my availabilities. It's possible to work 1 to 2 jobs. And I get that question a lot. And I see a ton of new grads this year, especially who have 2 jobs already. A lot of them like scored 1 job and then scored another. I'm like, woo, yay. That's,
That's
I mean,
amazing.
yeah, and think about it, they're getting 2 jobs. Now when there's more students and new grads coming out, they won't have to have people working 2 jobs, there's more work for everyone, but, it depends on where you live. Of course, everything is dependent on where you live, what city you end up living in and working in, and you can be per diem, which has sometimes, you know, cons to it, but there's a lot of pros, and we'll go into that in a little bit. But you can also be contracted um, as a sonographer, and they can tell you, like, hey, I need you for this amount of time, and then just sign a contract. Sometimes I've seen on Indeed bonuses, like thousands of dollars of bonuses for you just to sign up and apply and get the job, so that's pretty cool. But as terms of me, like I basically was per diem for all this time, worked 2 jobs, multiple hospitals, multiple places at the same time. And now I'm finally settled into a full-time position. So it's taken me a while to get here. It's not going to take you guys all that long to get there, but that was a decision I made for myself. Just wanted to save money. And now I'm full-time, which is really nice.
Congrats on your full time.
Thank you.
You deserve it.
Thank you.
So for those who don't know, from my understand, per diem is by the hour. Is that correct?
Yes. So per diem is um, it's translated to as needed. So basically, you can tell them when you can work and tell them when you cannot work. You can tell them, hey, I need these days off, and you'll typically get those days off. But it just depends on the company, right? When you join them, you have to ask them what their offer is and what their guidelines are. I mean, there's no contract you're typically signing, but you can ask them like, how does it work? And I know that for when I was a per diem, all I had to say was when I wanted a day off, and I got it off because you're not obligated. But at my hospital, you have to work 1 weekend a month, I believe. As long as you work 1 weekend a month, like you're kind of good to go for the rest of the time being. And you have the opportunity to work as much as you want or as little as you want. And I like that.
So that's the pro of per diem. You have the autonomy for your schedule.
Yes. I mean, does that sound something? I mean, for you, since you don't want nights or swing, like, or call kind of thing, that might have to be a sacrifice, for example, for somebody who can't find another job, but this per diem job is the only one open. You kind of have to sacrifice a little bit to work the call shift or work the swings in the nights and see if you can get out of it eventually after you get your experience.
We will see. You mentioned call shifts. So my hospital doesn't have nights or call shifts. Can you elaborate on call shifts?
Yeah, so call shifts are what you see all the time on social media where they kind of make fun of us getting up in the middle of the night. And basically, what happens is from a certain time to a certain time. So let's just give an example of 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. You are on call. So what that means is they can call you in to come in there in the middle of your deep sleep and go do an ultrasound. So that has its pros and cons as well. But that is where a majority of hospitals actually save their money is having these call shifts because they're not paying somebody overnight to be there and they can just call you when they need you. So I'll tell you probably all hospitals in the valley in Vegas except for 2 of them have call. And so you guys expect to take call if you want to work in a hospital. But for Lynn, exactly, they don't have it there. So that's pretty cool.
Yes, I think that's nice. And I also know that they hire per diem. So that might be my first. And I'm okay with it because now that you said about the pros of it, I really like it. Having your own
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. The one thing that people, I guess we can say real quick, the con is that if you are per diem, you don't have a stable, it's like not stability, the stability that one wants with full time. Obviously, there's other things we're going to talk about like benefits and pay, but one of them is the stability. As far as you want that stability, then full time is when you know when you're working and you know when you're off, versus per diem. You never know when you're going to work. They might call you in one day and ask you to work, and you, as a per diem person, you kind of agreed to that.
Let's see. Right. So you mentioned pay and benefits, and I think I researched, and it says the average starting pay is in the 30s range because it varies depending on where you are. I know New York is from like 30 to, I want to say 37, but it also, like I said, depending on where you work. So how is it over there?
So it's kind of similar as far as Las Vegas. I know that new grads can start around 25 and up. So remember, our cost of living is much lower than New York, and it's pretty good for a Las Vegas job. But I know that our prices in house marketing and everything is skyrocketing, just like everywhere else. So hopefully one day that goes up too, and which goes to show, I hope that you guys who are future sonographers do not accept anything less than $25. The more you accept anything less than, you're pushing the prices down, right? So obviously it's kind of hard because I know you want your first job, but think about it. You can work at most places for more than $25 an hour. Money is a huge thing when it comes to the career, and a lot of people don't want to say how much they make, which makes sense, but just know that a sonographer should get paid well. Okay.
And also know your worth too, because you studied for this, you tested for this, you passed. So it's also based on how the employers see you. If you accept a lower pay, then that shows to them that you're not as special, to say like lack of better word, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. It's because, like, if you can work somewhere else as a new grad with higher pay, why would you accept lesser pay? But I know it sucks because now you're like trying to decide whether you want that job or not. Should I get the experience or not? And a lot of times you're pushed into getting something less than. But I hope that you guys get offers that are at least greater than $25 or at that minimum. But here you can go all the way up to 50, 60, $70 on the West Coast. I've heard of people in California making over $70 an hour. And I'm like, woo, nice, you know?
Their living cost is also really high.
Exactly. So it kind of levels it out.
Yes, so you also have to consider where you are. So basically, your workplace is most important, just like where you want to work and where you want to live. So living costs is definitely a big factor into your pay.
Yeah, that's why that question for us is always hard to say. I think nurses, they kind of have a same level of like all around the board, how much they kind of get paid. And of course, there's different kinds of nurses. I mean, for us, there's different types of sonographers, but you still won't get that good pay until you have all your experience. I mean, 20-year sonographers get paid really well, especially if you work at a place that actually, I know Lynn's going to talk about this, has a union, because there's some places that do not. I know some places in the valley that don't give you raises, and it makes me feel sad because it's like those sonographers deserve that, cost of living raises, just experience raises, and they don't get that. But I work for a hospital that is part of a union. So, Lynn, did you want to talk about that?
Yes, so union is basically if you're part of a union, they protect you. They're like, I want to say they're your lawyers for your employment rights. So they stand up for you to your employers, and they're the ones that would push for your raise. I know that Mount Sinai, they would push for sonographers' raise every couple of months or like every year. I'm not sure. I get like both answers on that. But what unions does is that they protect you and they're making sure that you have your benefits, you have a pension, depending on unions, but some unions give you pensions. You get your benefits, which includes insurance, medical insurance, dental insurance, vision. That might apply to your children as well. My mom was a part of a union, and I benefited from that. They also give you PTO. So it's just basically they're looking out for you. So if you want to consider being part of a union, um, consider a workplace that has a union. So that could be another option for you.
Yeah, I've had people ask me about like, is there a union for sonographers? And I don't know exactly if there is. I don't think so. I don't know. You guys can let us know if there is, but I know that employers, like hospitals and companies typically will have a union, but I know a lot of hospitals in Vegas who don't have a union, so they don't get the raises. They're treated unfairly. And that's unfortunate, but it's kind of, where you end up working, and some people have to work there.
Yes, and just to summarize up, like unions is for you. They're there for you, and they support you from a workplace standpoint. And pay is basically based on your experience, like Giselle said, but it's also based on your education. So I know that we will go into depth with this on another episode because it's also a requested topic for us. Associates and bachelors and any higher education. So with pay will increase with the level of your education. So
Yeah,
just know that. So just know that if you have a bachelor's um, or any other degree, you may be eligible to request a higher pay.
right. And the thing is, we get that question all the time, which is, should you go associates, bachelors? Is the pay the same? Is it different? A lot of people will tell you that, no, there's no difference between it. But you have to also remember that education is a big part of the system, and that if you want a certain job and a certain position, having a bachelor's will help you get what you need and want ultimately to be able to achieve more pay and experience, education. It's all tied together. And just do your research on where you want to work eventually and see what the offers are like in your area, because we can only say so much about my personal experience, and obviously Lynn's. She's still trying to figure out where she wants to work and how much she's going to get paid eventually, what offers can she get, so things like that. And she also mentioned benefits. Remember that per diem sonographers usually don't get benefits. Depending on your place of work, just ask them, what are you going to get, as far as if you're going to be offered per diem, part-time, full-time. Ask, 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 ask every question that you can. Have a notebook and write down everything you think about, because a career is important and you want to know what you're getting yourself into.
And these are the questions that you ask after an interview. So I get a lot of questions. What do you ask after an interview? For jobs, these are the questions that you ask if they don't mention it up during the interview.
Yeah. So hopefully some of that gives you an idea to think about, especially those of you who are currently in your clinicals, currently in school. Do your research and see where you want to work. Look on Indeed, job sites, opportunities, figure out how much they're offering you, even if there's any bonuses. And if you're planning on moving, check out those cities too.
Yes, that's what I'm doing. Like I'm in New York City and I constantly go on Indeed or just Google sonographers job openings and see what's around my area and see what they're expecting for the applicants. And I try to match those requirements so that when I get there, I can just apply.
Yeah, be prepared because Lynn's prepared. Woo!
I try.
But hopefully you guys found this helpful. I know we can still talk a lot about ultrasound. We know that you guys are loving the episodes, and we are so appreciative of you guys listening. Of course, there's so much we want to talk about, so much we can go off on with our conversation. So I appreciate you guys. Me and Lynn love the support. and hearing the feedback.
Yes, thank you so much for your time listening to us. I know our episodes are about 30 minutes. It's not too short, but also not too long. Thank you for sticking around with us. Thank you for listening, giving us feedback. We constantly try to improve to like for the next episode to be better than the last. And wherever you're listening, please follow, subscribe to Giselle's channel because this will be on YouTube. And give us a review and rate us if you have a chance.
Yeah, don't forget to follow us on social media. That's where you can reach us. I know the podcast comes out once a week, and we're just thankful that we've got this thing going. And Ultrasound Awareness Month isn't over yet, so stay
No, it's still
tuned.
here. It's still
Yeah.
here. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll see you guys on the next episode, and hopefully, you guys let us know what else you want to hear.
Yes, thank you. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.